Right, here we go. Mark here from Mark's Reviews and Tutorials, and we are doing an oil change on a 1 Series BMW, on my 1 Series BMW. Oil change isn't complicated. All you got to do is drain the oil out, and that does require getting under the car, step one. Now as I've been working on BMWs over the year, 3 Series, 5 Series, it's always a struggle to get underneath. You do have to jack them up. I have gone and lashed out and bought myself some ramps, which are going to raise it up enough so that I can scoot underneath and just undo the bolt and drain it out. Now ideally you would want the car level, but we're not going to achieve that with these ramps. But if you really wanted to bring it in the car level, you could either use 4 ramps, I suppose, if you drove up on all of them at once, or even drive up onto some boards or jack up the back, whatever you want. But for this oil change today, this is going to suffice. We're going to drive up onto the ramps, undo the little nut underneath, drain the oil out is step one. And the reason I mention that, because on BMW it's a real issue of how to get underneath. If you don't have a plan of how to get underneath, don't plan on doing an oil change, because you need to get under there to be able to get the oil out. Getting the oil in is absolutely simple. Here's your oil cap here. That just turns half a turn or 2/3 of a turn like that, and then you can put the funnel in and fill the oil back in there. You can see this oil's, I've been a bit busy or a bit slack, whatever you want to call it. That was okay. Yeah, there you go. The oil's still okay, but it's due for a change. I change every 10,000 kilometers, and this has managed to stretch out to 12, so it's 20% over. So glad to be getting it done today. So oil out, oil in. But the other thing that you always need to do when you're changing your oil is change the engine oil filter. In a BMW, it's this round device, and here they've got the engine cover nice and close to it. I've got my oil filter wrench here. You'll have to have a device for getting that off. You can't do it by hand. So let's have a quick look while we're here to see if this is going to fit on. This device just sits on the top, and no, it's not going to fit down the crack. So we're going to have to undo the engine cover here, here, and here to lift that up enough, prop it off, and then we'll be able to get on and to take the oil filter off. But that's really all there is to it. It's a matter of changing out the oil filter. BMW uses paper element air filters. Now again, don't be fooled into thinking, oh, they're all the same, because they're not. They're different for a 1 Series, for a 5 Series, all the different engines. It's all different, and they come with an O-ring kit as well. So you do have to take some time and make sure you get the right year and the right engine, so that you've got the right oil filter to put in. If you can, I'd go with an OEM. This Man is a good company. Again, you just got to be careful with your oil filters that it's made to the right specifications, because not filtering your oil is a very, very serious thing. You can cause some real serious engine damage. So if you're going to only save a couple of dollars, I'd be going for a branded and a better quality oil filter. So that's it in basics. Got to get the oil out the bottom. You do have to run the car for a bit first so it's warm, so you'll get a lot more oil out. I've already done that. But then it really is, once the oil's out, change the filter and then put the plug back in the bottom and put it all back together again. So we'll get stuck into it. Well, first step is to get underneath and to get the oil draining out. Okay, so under the front of the car we go, looking for where the oil pan is. Got a big circle here to start with, and that mesh grid there, that's actually your jack point, that piece of plastic. You can jack up onto that. Back behind that, there we go, there is our sump plug. That's what we want to bolt off and drain the oil out from that point. Now being BMW, I've not actually changed the oil in this car before, but BMW, most wheel nuts are 17mm, and I'm thinking that that is also, yes, that's also 17mm. It's a common size on BMW. So there you go, 17mm socket. The other little piece of equipment you are going to need is a low bucket. I have a specialty one here for catching the oil. And again, you can see how much oil it takes. 8 litres this bucket, but it needs to be low so you can get it in underneath and still work and get it to drain out. Okay, so here we go. We've got our oil bucket. We put the gloves on so that we don't end up getting it all over us. And it's time to pull this out. Undoing is always anti-clockwise. There we go. Cracked it with the spanner. Now, it's a matter of positioning this, and it's going to come forward quite a bit. And then we screw it out. And this can be very hot if your car's hot. Pressing it up, see how much you end up getting on your fingers. Really is worth getting some disposable gloves. And again, a purpose-built drain pan will have a little spot for you to put the oil. But that's it. That's draining out. So we can come back up top now. As long as you're confident that you've got enough catchment, you don't have to stay and watch that. You can let it drain out. Okay, so next we need to take the engine cover off here in order to get my tool down. There is another tool which just exactly fits over like a metal dome, which would probably fit in there, but lots of BMWs are different. Again, like the oil filters, they look like they might all be the same size, but they're not, so you do have to get the right one. So, and then again, unfortunately, this bolt here, this one we can get to, but this one is down under this, so we need to pull this out. Just find the little squeeze button underneath, and that'll come out. At least the first one will. That one's out, and that one's out. There we go. Now I'll get that out of the way. These are 10mm bolts. Again, a very common size. The BMW was 10mm. So we can get that sufficiently out of the way to get this off. Yeah, a lot of mucking around to do an oil change, I know, but that's what it takes. So get that off, but at least the filter is up here on the top of the engine and not jammed down the side or anything else. So that one out, and that one out. See, they're an interesting little nut. You don't want to lose that, that's for sure. So I might put that up the top there. And that one as well. And no doubt there's more than that on the engine cover, but I'm hoping that's enough to get that loose. So this here, it works like a spider on arms. I've got another video. If you have a look at, I'll put a link up here, how not to change the oil in a 3 Series. You'll see about which brand of these I recommend, because I've had one that absolutely wouldn't do the job. Now we want this to undo this in an anti-clockwise direction. So if we do it like that and then try to undo, that won't do us any good. It needs to sit like that. That'll then grip in and do what we want. Let's see if we're going to be able to get this to work. Better. Okay, that goes on into place, and we get a 1/2 inch drive. Give that a turn, and that'll open that up. What we need to do is get this sitting on the top where it's sitting absolutely perfect now. Then the socket head goes into it, and then turn it in the anti-clockwise direction. It keys in and hangs on, and that is tight as. There, it's turning. Don't run into something. Yeah, there's a clearance here on the back of the motor that's run into. So just need to lift that up. It may even be enough off. No, that's enough. It's going to come off by hand now. Although it's also hot. Okay, so I've laid down a towel and a plastic bag, and this has had time to drip, and it's still dripping out down below. I want as much oil out as possible, so I'm just going to lift that out here onto this plastic bag, and then we're going to pull this filter out. I don't believe it will spin out, no, it just needs to press out like that. That gets the filter out, and then here we've got all these little O-rings which have been replaced here in the little bag that came with the oil filter. There's a new O-ring for the top here, new for here, and new for here. Alright, so here we go. Well, we've got a little metal washer there, and then we've got a series of rubber O-rings. You can see this one is slightly bigger than this one, so we'll take these two off to start with. Just hook under the O-ring and lift it off is the way to go, like that. There's one. Slippery, and it's covered in oil. There's number two, and you do have to take very careful note of where these sit. There's number three. It's right there. And then we get these guys and put them back on in reverse order. I'll have the biggest one. I know it's old oil, but I'm going to smear a little bit of oil on it. It'll certainly make it easy to go back on. And I will try and put this on without the screwdriver. There's a clear bigger slot there that this goes into. So just spin that around like that. And that goes into place. That, yeah, she's a bit big, that O-ring. If that causes problems, I'll be putting that one back on. Anyway, that's that one on. And then the next one goes on again. There's a clear O-ring slot there. Goes up over the top. Goes into there. And then that goes on there. That's all done. So 1, 2, 3 new O-rings are on. Then we grab our oil filter. Now again, checking the length and the hole size, making sure that everything is the same, which it looks fantastic. And then we're going to slip that on. It's going to be a bit tight. We're going to slip that on. There it goes. It goes on like that. I've managed to cover that in oil in the process because the oil on my gloves. But we can wipe that off. So what I'm doing now, there's just a bit of a reservoir of oil, so I just gave that a bit of a flick to get as much out as possible and put some oil onto the thread. This is the thread here that's going to run and pull this down onto that O-ring. So next stage is to get the rag and give it a wipe on the lid there. Making sure no lint or anything like that is going inside. Put that back into place, and now I'm going to take these gloves off because they're covered in oil, so they've done their job. This muck here I'm going to take away as well. It's a huge mess. Now you can see we've managed to spill a bit of oil around there. We can wash that off once we're on. And now, yeah, always do this up with your hand. You don't want to cross thread it. It's a plastic thread going into metal. So do it up by hand to start with, and then we can finish it off with the tool. And it's got a torque on it here. It's saying 25 Newton meter is how tight it wants to be tightened up. You can hear the rubber O-ring, and it is important that you put a bit of oil on it as it goes in. I'll take this down as far as I can by hand. There, that's come to a stop, and looking, that's gone all the way back down by hand, so that's really good. get my little device, my little tool back, put him back from the undo to the do up direction, like that. Slip that over. My little socket set is actually broken on the do up direction. The little plastic ratchet is gone. So I'll go to the bigger one and just nib that up. Okay, so that is done. We can now take this off and put the engine cover bolts back on. Okay, so I've got that started with my fingers. Now we can just finish it off. So now we go back underneath and put the nut back in underneath, and then we top up the car with oil. Okay, so I've gone underneath, I've got the sump plug and given it all a clean up, and there was a replacement washer. These little brass or bronze washers, they actually crush in part of the sealing process. So I've taken the old one off and put the new one on, and I'm going to dive underneath and screw this up and then just tighten it up again, not over tight, and then we are ready to put the oil in to here and we're done. Okay, so something really important is how much oil do you put in. I've got a chart here and it's got all of the 1 Series BMWs. I'm just going to flick through really quick so you can just pause the video at the bit that you want, but it's got all of them, convertibles. Also the F Series is coming up, so all of the 1 Series are here with the different engines. But just work out what size you've got. It'll give you the right amount of oil to pour in, and because we don't have a dipstick, you can't tip it in and then measure on the dipstick. It's actually a big long process, so you do need to know the right quantity of oil, tip in the right quantity of oil, and then you're right to go. So the sump plug's back in, and that really does matter. I've got all of the oil capacities for the different BMW 1 Series. So I'm just going to flick them through real quick, just a few seconds on each one. You can pause on the one that's yours to find the right oil capacity. Mine, the 120i, which was the same as the 1.6, the 1.8 and the 1.2, the 116, 118 and 120, is 4.25 litres. This is a 5 litre. Now, very important what oil you put in your BMW. Have a look at the link up here. What oil for your BMW. Very important that you get the right stuff in. I'm using 5W30 fully synthetic, but do yourself a favour, have a look at that link I've put up there about what oil to put in. Now, I've just wiped down. You don't want to get dirt and dust into your engine oil. That's only going to create wear. So clean bottles, clean funnels, everything needs to be really clean. And then you're right to get going. So I know that I need to put 4.25 litres out of a 5 litre, so I can pour pretty much all of this in straight away. Let's stabilise that. You see the colour there, nice and thin. Stabilise that funnel. But then once we're done this with the 4.25 litres, you do check for leaks down at the sump, and then once you've got your oil in, you can start your engine again. Now, filling it by capacity, you know, in the old days we'd fill it by a dipstick. This car doesn't have a dipstick. So again, how to check your engine oil if you're not sure, have a look at the link. I've done a video on that on this car, on a 1 Series, so you can check that out as well. But going to tip in 4.25 litres, because it'll have to fill everything up where the oil filter is and all around, so we'll take it for a bit of a run. Go from there. Now that's going to be getting close. The oil should have down here a marker from the top. It'll be up here to start with, and down here it'll be 1 litre, 2 litres, 3 litres, 4 litres, 4.5 litres, and that's about where we're at the moment, about 4.5 litres. So, I don't know if I'm going to give that a try where it is. We'll let that drain in, and then we'll give the engine a start and get it level, of course, when you're wanting to get it going. But these BMWs, they do actually have to run for quite a distance before they will give you an oil level. You can't just turn them on and check them straight away. So we'll do that, go for a little run, and then we should be fine. And again, if it needs a little bit more, that little bit that's left in here, keep that and keep that for this car. So if you do have to do any little bit of topping up, and don't panic if you're doing a little bit of topping up in your car, because they're built to consume a little bit of oil. The tolerances are built that way, but it's good to top up with the same type of oil. You can get sludging if you mix oils and mix different things together. So yeah, have a look at those videos I mentioned, what oil in your BMW and how to check your oil, and you'll be all set from here. Because the sun plug is in, the oil filter is changed, the oil is back in, so we're ready to go. Congratulations, you've changed your oil yourself.